I'm Jeremy Mowry, and I'm here with my friend Randy Ruiz, who's helping film. And we're going to do a little how-to video on making puppets for stop motion. First, we're going to start with the armature. Here's my character. I measured it out to be about 10 inches. And as you see, there's some lines here for the skeleton. That's where I'll be using to trace out my armature wire. I'm using 1/16 inch armature wire. So first, I'm going to take out some of my wire here, and I'm going to do this in two stages. The first will be basically from his neck and his spine going down to the legs. So I'm going to start at the neck here and just go straight down his spine on my sheet of paper, and then follow that along down the hips and down the legs. After I go down the spine to the first leg, I come around for the foot at the bottom, and then I follow it, basically parallel the wire right up against itself, going back up the leg. So as you see, I did the spine and down the leg to the first foot, and coming back up the leg there, and then do a little U-turn to come down the other leg. And it's important to take your time with this and get all the kinks out of the wire so it's as straight as possible. But then I'll go down the second leg and then around for the foot again, and then back up the same leg, and then back all the way up the spine until I end where I started at the top of the neck. But so now we have, this is his spine, and then we have two legs and the feet. So we'll set this aside for now, and we'll do the arms. And again, I'm using the same method, and I will start and stop in the same place, which will be right in the middle of the arms, basically at the spine. So I will follow my first arm, going from the center all the way out to the hand, and wrap around for the hand just like I did for the feet. And then follow it back up, so I double up the wire along the arm, and now I'm back in the middle, and then I'll repeat for the other arm. And then I will end back in the middle where I started. Clip it off. Got the arms. So now, in order to keep this wire together, I'm going to spray it with an adhesive spray. This one's Super 77, and I'll use this thread once it's sprayed to wrap around the wire. So I'm going to use the spray now. So now that I've got my spray adhesive on here, I'll take the end of my thread, start wrapping it. I'm going to do the same pattern that I did when I was laying down the wire. Start and stopping in the same spot, and I'm just going to make a little crisscross pattern. So I'll just wrap it a couple times at the top to get started, and then I'm just going to go down in the same way that I did, but at an angle, so that when I come back around and come back up, I'll be able to crisscross and make little X's. Now I'm coming back up the leg, so I'm crossing it the opposite way to make my little X's, and I'm kind of using my finger to keep tension on the thread. I want to have it nice and tight along the wire with nice perfect little X's. Alright, now we're almost back up at the top of the neck. I always try to do a few extra wraps around the top here. Go. And any excess, you can wrap it around, cut it with some scissors. So now I've got the spine and the legs all nice with the thread. And then I do the same thing for the arms, and I use the same pattern that I did while I was laying down the wire again, starting and stopping in the same spot in the middle. Alright, so got plenty of spray adhesive on the arms. All nice, sticky. Alright. Now I like to kind of hold them in the middle there to hold the ends in place. I'll just do one arm at a time. And doing the same again, just like I did the first piece, doing it at an angle this way, so then I can do the opposite angle on my way back to cross my little X's. There, I'll use my leftover glue, make sure the end is nice and glued on there. So now I've got my two pieces that'll make up the armature. So now that we have our armature with the thread all glued on there, and we gave it a few minutes to dry, next we're going to use bonding putty to stick the arms in place, and also to put around the waist to reinforce the waist and to add a little fly rig. And we're using this square brass tubing. I already cut a little piece with my little handsaw. But this will be right there next to the waist, held there by bonding putty. So that way, if you need to make your puppet jump or fly, you can stick a little rig into this square brass tubing. But anyway, this bonding putty you can get at most hardware stores in the plumbing section. Because as you see, there's an A and the B component. Once they're completely mixed together, it'll set off a little chemical reaction, and it'll actually heat up at first while it starts to harden. And then in 5 minutes it'll be rock hard. Get it all mixed up really good. You want it to be mixed up all the way 100%. But actually I think I've got it pretty good now. Yeah, see, bonding putty. It's all one solid color. Alright, so I'm actually going to refer back to my drawing here. I'm going to basically line up my wire just how I drew it, so I know where to place my arms. That looks about right. And the bonding putty go right there. So now, just wrap it all around in order to get it to look really nice and in a nice even little oval or circle. I just keep playing with it throughout the whole hardening process pretty much. Yeah, it's getting pretty tough now. Alright, so now his arms are in place and attached to the spine. Alright, so now we're going to start the process over again with our second piece. As you see, it's got two colors right now. Just going to start ripping it apart and smashing it together. So I'll just put that in the bonding putty like this. Put that over his waist here. And then do the same thing that I did with the arms, essentially. Now I just have an extra piece to worry about, the little brass tubing. So I just have to be mindful not to get any putty inside the tubing, because that would defeat the purpose. But yeah, just play with this just like the other piece. Make sure it's all nice and wrapped all the way around the tubing, around the waist. Yeah, think we're just about there. It'll still probably take another couple minutes to harden all the way, but it's a nice smooth looking little waist there with our square brass tubing for the fly rig. Then the next step, we're going to move on to the feet. So first I'm going to bend the feet up like so. There we go. Make sure he's nice and even. And I'm going to put some tie downs for the feet. So I'm got my Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel. I'm going to be using these winged T-nuts. This size is 6-32 for the thread size of this little T-nut. So I'm going to want them to go right on like so. So first, I'm going to put a couple drops right on top of the wire, just around the front half of the foot where the T-nut's going to be touching. And this helps to hold the T-nut in place while I put epoxy. And you want your wire to be nice and flat and flush with the T-nut. I usually like to just hold it here for a few seconds to give the super glue a chance to hold it in place. So that should be good for that one. Yeah, looks pretty flush and even all along the top of the wire there at the end of the foot. Alright, well that one finishes drying. We're going to move on to use this epoxy. Alright. I just use these little Q-tips here to mix up my epoxy. So, let's get out, and you have to use, a nice even amount, the same amount of each type. And then you just mix it up really good so that they're nice one solid color. There we go. And this stuff dries in the next few minutes. I think it's maybe a little bit faster than the bonding putty. But right now it's nice and gooey. It can be a little messy to work with, but it'll start hardening very fast. So I just put it right underneath and alongside, anywhere where the wire touches the T-nut. Let's see. Yep. Ooh, I got pretty close, but it's still outside the thread, so that's good. I've got this pretty much all the way around. It's already starting to get a little bit less gooey. So this is going to be hardening up here pretty quick. So before it hardens up all the way, I'm going to try and see if I can get some on the neck here. Pop it on there a little. Okay, so now I'm going to put this on. Just slide it right on there. Alright, there we go. And I try to keep a nice little layer on the bottom here as it's drying. That'll help hold this brass tubing in place for the headstock. And if it's still gooey enough, you can even attempt to fill in the top a little bit. That's the trickiest part though. Ooh, this is starting to get a little too hard. I'll try to just put a little bit up there. As you can see, it can be pretty messy. Right now you can still wipe it off. Alright, but he's turning out pretty nice. So this is our armature.